The air was thick with tension when the gunshots split the afternoon like thunder. 15-year-old Malik, a runaway who had lived his life on the margins, didn't think twice. Without a second of hesitation, he hurled himself in front of the bullets meant for Skylar, the 6-year-old daughter of Vance Iron Matthews, president of the Iron Stallion Motorcycle Club. 3 bullets tore through his chest, and as Malik crumpled to the ground, his vision blurred, and his life, once defined by isolation and survival, collided with a family he never thought he'd have. For the past few months, Malik had lived in the shadows, behind dumpsters, beneath chain-link fences, blending into the unseen corners of Riverside. He'd become a ghost, moving silently through life, unnoticed by the world. Surviving wasn't easy, but it was simple: never be seen, never be remembered, and most importantly, never be a problem. The rules kept him alive. But on this day, when a life was at risk, he broke all his rules in one swift, life-changing action. The parking lot erupted in chaos. Diesel, one of Vance's most trusted men, knelt beside Malik, watching as the young boy bled out before him. Skylar, the child he loved more than life itself, stood untouched, safe in his arms. The moment Malik fell, Diesel's world shattered, and in that split second, everything he thought he knew about family, loyalty, and sacrifice would be tested in ways he never imagined. Malik's selfless act didn't just save a child, it set off a chain of events that no one saw coming. The boy who'd been nothing more than a ghost in the background now had a story to tell, a story that would rewrite everything Diesel knew about his own past, his family, and the deep-seated secrets that had been buried for years. But first, someone had to survive the night. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Malik's survival sparked a series of revelations that no one was prepared for. Days passed in a blur of hospital rooms, police reports, and growing suspicions, but what Diesel and the club didn't know was that Malik wasn't just a runaway kid trying to survive. He was a piece of a puzzle that had been missing for years. Behind the wounds and the blood, Malik carried a legacy, a story that connected him to Vance and the Iron Stallion MC in a way no one had anticipated. A mystery, buried in the past, was about to surface, and the truth would shake this broken family to its core. The crack of gunfire split the Saturday morning like thunder from hell itself. Malik couldn't think. His body moved on instinct, some ancient knowing that lives deeper than bone. He saw the gun's barrel swing toward little Skylar, 6 years old with her father's eyes, reaching for a dropped ice cream cone near the clubhouse steps. Time fractured. One heartbeat, Malik was standing 10 feet away. The next, he was airborne, arms outstretched like wings, his shadow falling across the child's blonde pigtails. The bullets found him mid-flight. 3 rounds punched through his chest with the force of God's own judgment, hot, righteous, absolute. The impact slammed him backward onto the oil-stained asphalt, and suddenly the blue Georgia sky above him looked like heaven's door cracking open. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading dark and thick, soaking into concrete that had seen too much violence, too many goodbyes. Malik. Diesel's voice tore through the chaos, raw and animal. He dropped to his knees, hands already pressing against the wounds, but the blood kept coming, pulsing between his fingers like a river that wouldn't be dammed. "Stay with me, brother. Stay with me." The other bikers swarmed, Iron scooping up his daughter, who stood frozen, candy-striped shirt now speckled crimson. Tank ripped off his kilt, wadding it against Malik's chest. Hammer was already on the phone, screaming for an ambulance, his voice cracking on every word. But Malik's eyes were going distant, like he was looking through this world into the next. Diesel leaned close, his tears falling onto Malik's face. "Why'd you do it? Why'd you jump?" Malik's lips moved, barely a whisper, blood bubbling at the corners of his mouth. "She's just a baby." The sirens were wailing now, getting closer, but not close enough. Never close enough. In that moment, with his life bleeding out onto the Georgia clay, Malik wasn't nobody's throwaway kid anymore. He wasn't the boy they'd left behind. He was something else entirely, something sacred. He was a father who'd finally learned how to protect his child, even if she'd never know it was him. Sometimes the hardest truth is that we become who we're meant to be in our darkest hour. Malik's story is just beginning to unfold, and the secrets buried in that clubhouse are deeper than anyone knows. Drop a comment below if you felt that moment when Malik jumped. Have you ever had to make a split-second choice that changed everything? Let's talk about it. The clubhouse exploded with boots and thunder. Iron's brothers poured out like warriors summoned to battle, leather vests, tattooed arms, faces carved from stone and loyalty. They stopped cold when they saw him, a homeless kid bleeding out on their sacred ground, his threadbare clothes soaked through, his skinny frame crumpled like discarded paper. Who the hell is he? Snake demanded, his voice sharp with confusion. Nobody knew. Diesel cradled Skylar against his chest, her small body trembling, her eyes squeezed shut against the nightmare. He stared down at Malik, this stranger, this ghost, and something twisted deep in his gut. Something he couldn't name. Kid came out of nowhere, Tank said, his voice shaking. Just flew. Iron knelt beside the boy, his hand hovering over Malik's face like he was afraid to touch something holy. The club president had seen men die before, good men, blood brothers, but this was different. This was a child who'd chosen death over watching another child fall. Why? Iron whispered, his voice breaking on that single word. Why would you do this? But Malik couldn't answer. His eyes had rolled back, showing only white, his chest barely rising. The siren screamed closer, cutting through the morning like prophecy. Diesel's mind raced, fragments of the morning replaying in brutal clarity. The kid watching them. That look of recognition, no, something deeper. Hunger. Not for food, but for something he couldn't possess. He was watching us, Diesel said suddenly, his voice cutting through the chaos. Before the shooting. He was standing across the street, just staring. Staring at who? Iron's eyes narrowed. Diesel's throat tightened. At you. And Skylar. The words hung in the air like gunsmoke. Iron's jaw clenched, his hand instinctively moving to his daughter's blonde hair, checking her for wounds he'd already confirmed weren't there. Run his pockets. Careful, respectful. This kid just saved my baby's life. Tank hesitated, then gently searched Malik's torn jacket. His fingers found something, a piece of paper, folded small and worn soft from being touched too many times. He pulled it out, the edges brown with age and weather. Boss, Tank said quietly, holding it up. There's something here. Iron took the paper with trembling hands, unfolding it like scripture. His eyes scanned the page once, twice, then his face went ghost white. The letter slipped from his fingers, floating down to land on Malik's chest, mixing with the blood. Oh God, Iron breathed. Oh sweet Jesus, no. What? Diesel pressed. What's it say? But Iron couldn't speak. He just stared at the dying boy before him, really looked at him for the first time. The shape of his nose. The angle of his jaw. Those eyes, even closed, somehow familiar. The ambulance screamed into the lot, paramedics jumping out with stretchers and equipment. They pushed the bikers back, professional hands taking over, starting IVs, applying pressure, calling out numbers that sounded like countdown to doomsday. We're losing him, one paramedic shouted. Diesel grabbed Iron's arm. What did that letter say? Iron's eyes were wet now, tears cutting through the hard lines of his face. It's from Maya. The name landed like a bomb. Maya. Iron's old flame. The woman who disappeared 15 years ago without a word, leaving nothing but questions and a hole in Iron's chest that never quite healed. What about Maya? Diesel's voice was barely a whisper. Iron looked at Malik as they loaded him onto the stretcher, his voice breaking on every syllable. That's my son. The truth just shattered everything, didn't it? For 15 years, Iron Matthews raised Skylar not knowing he had another child, a son, living on the streets, watching from the shadows. Comment below, have you ever discovered a truth that changed your entire understanding of your past? Sometimes the people closest to us carry the heaviest secrets. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and dread. Diesel couldn't sit still. While Iron paced like a caged animal and the brothers formed a leather-clad wall of silent prayer, Diesel slipped away to the nurse's station. His hands shook as he leaned against the counter. The kid they brought in, he said quietly to the nurse. Gunshot wounds. I need to know his name. She hesitated, glancing at the police officer stationed nearby. Family only. We are his family. The lie came easy, felt true somehow. Please. Something in his eyes made her soften. She pulled up the screen, typed quickly. Malik Reed. 15 years old. No permanent address. No emergency contact listed. She scrolled further, frowning. He's been treated here before. Malnutrition, exposure, broken ribs from an assault last winter. Malik Reed. The name detonated in Diesel's chest like a grenade. Reed. Maya's last name. Maya, who'd vanished into the night 15 years ago, pregnant and terrified. Maya, who Iron had loved with a kind of desperate intensity that either builds empires or burns them down. Jesus Christ, Diesel whispered. He stumbled back to the waiting room where Iron sat now, head in his hands, that blood-stained letter clutched between his fingers. Diesel had read it 3 times already, each word searing itself into his memory. Vance, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I couldn't tell you about him, about our son. Your life, the club, the violence. I couldn't raise a baby in that world. I named him Malik. It means king. I wanted him to be better than us. But if something happens to me, if he finds you, please don't turn him away. He's yours. He's always been yours. Maya. The letter was dated 14 years ago. Where is she? Diesel asked, his voice rough. Where's Maya? Iron's jaw tightened, muscle jumping beneath skin. Dead. 2 years now. Overdose in a motel outside Savannah. His voice cracked. I didn't even know until 6 months after. No funeral. No goodbye. Just gone. And Malik. Foster care, I'm guessing. Then the streets. Iron looked up, his eyes hollow with grief and rage at himself, at the world, at every choice that led to this moment. My son was out there, alone, and I didn't even know he existed. A doctor emerged from the double doors, surgical mask pulled down, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. The brothers stood as one, a wall of leather and desperation. He's alive, the doctor said, and the collective exhale could have filled sails. Barely. 3 bullets, massive blood loss, 1 collapsed lung. The next 48 hours are critical. Can we see him? Iron's voice was a father's plea disguised as a command. I see you. 2 visitors at a time. He's unconscious, probably will be for a while. The doctor's eyes softened. That kid's a fighter. Whatever reason he had to live, it kept his heart beating when it should have stopped. Iron and Diesel walked those sterile hallways like men approaching holy ground. Through the ICU window, they could see him, Malik small and broken beneath white sheets, machines breathing for him, tubes snaking from his arms like he was more equipment than boy. Iron pressed his palm against the glass, and Diesel watched something shatter and rebuild inside his president. Watched a man who'd buried his heart 15 years ago suddenly remember how to feel. He was watching us, Diesel said again, the pieces finally clicking. For how long, you think? Days? Weeks? However long it took to work up the courage, Iron said, his voice barely there. However long it took for a 15-year-old kid to figure out how to introduce himself to the father who never knew he existed. A father he'd just died protecting. He saved Skylar, Diesel said. He didn't even know her, but he knew, Iron interrupted, understanding blooming terrible and beautiful. That's his sister. Blood knows blood, even when the mind doesn't. His hand curled into a fist against the glass. My son took bullets meant for my daughter. What kind of cosmic justice is that? The kind that breaks you open so God can finally get inside. The weight of 15 lost years just crashed down on Iron Matthews. A son he never knew, living in shadows, watching the family that should have been his from across the street. Have you ever been the secret someone kept? Or carried a truth too heavy to speak? Let's talk about the weight of silence. 3 blocks away, in a condemned warehouse that reeked of meth and malice, Theo Matthews threw a glass bottle against the brick wall. It exploded like his plans, sharp, scattered, ruined. You missed, he snarled at the trembling shooter beside him. 1 little girl. 6 years old. How do you miss? There was a kid, he came out of nowhere, man. Theo's fist connected with the man's jaw, dropping him like a stone. I don't pay you to make excuses. I pay you to end bloodlines. Theo Matthews. The name the club didn't speak. The brother Iron had excommunicated 7 years ago for crossing lines even bikers wouldn't touch, dealing to kids, beating women, turning the club's protection racket into a reign of terror that stained everything it touched. Iron had given him a choice: leave or die. Theo chose exile. But exile breeds monsters. "My brother thinks he's untouchable," Theo muttered, pacing like a rabid dog. King of his little empire, raising his perfect princess while I rot in the shadows he cast. He'd watched Iron build a life, a daughter, a legacy, respect that Theo could never earn. And it poisoned him, drop by toxic drop, until vengeance became the only language he spoke. Skylar was supposed to be the message: everything you love can bleed. But now some homeless kid had taken the bullets, and worse, the police scanner crackled with news that made Theo's blood run cold. Victim identified as Malik Reed, 15 years old, currently in critical condition at Mercy General. Reed. Maya's last name. Theo's eyes widened, pieces clicking into place he'd never considered. Maya, who'd left Iron pregnant all those years ago. A kid, 15 years old, homeless, watching the clubhouse. "No," Theo breathed, then laughed, a sound like breaking glass. No, that's impossible. But the universe has a sick sense of humor. Iron had another kid. A son. And Theo had just made that son a hero, had just handed his brother a redemption story written in bullet wounds and sacrifice. "Boss." The shooter wiped blood from his mouth. "What do we do?" Theo's smile was a blade. "We finish what we started." But this time he pulled out his phone, scrolling through surveillance photos he'd taken of the clubhouse over months of obsessive watching. There, in the background of a shot from 2 weeks ago, a skinny kid in a torn jacket, partially hidden behind a dumpster, eyes locked on Iron and Skylar as they walked to Iron's motorcycle. Malik. Watching. Always watching. "This time," Theo continued, his voice dropping to something cold and ancient, "we don't just take what Iron loves. We destroy what he just found." Because a son Iron never knew existed, a son who'd just proven himself worthy of the Matthews name through blood and sacrifice, that was a wound Theo could reopen every single day. That was a weapon sharper than any bullet. Evil doesn't always wear a stranger's face. Sometimes it wears your blood. Theo Matthews just discovered his nephew exists, and instead of feeling remorse, he's found a new target. Have you ever had family that felt more like enemy? Sometimes the most dangerous battles happen inside our own bloodlines. Let's talk about it. Diesel sat in the hospital chapel at 3 a.m., hands clasped so tight his knuckles had gone white as bone. The letter wasn't Iron's to read. It was his. He'd found it in Malik's other pocket, a second letter, more worn than the first, folded and unfolded so many times the creases had nearly torn through. The handwriting was different. Shakier. Desperate. Diesel. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. The cancer doesn't care that I have a son to raise. 15 years I kept him from you, not because you didn't deserve to know, but because I was scared. Scared you'd choose the club over us. Scared I'd lose you both. His name is Malik. He has your eyes, your stubborn heart, your way of seeing people nobody else sees. I told him his father was a good man who didn't know he existed. I made you a ghost so he wouldn't hate you. But he needs you now. He needs to know he came from something real, something good. Please, Diesel. Don't let him disappear like I did. Carmen. Carmen Rodriguez. The singer from that dive bar in Macon. The woman who'd loved him for 6 blazing months before vanishing without explanation, leaving only a note that said, "I can't do this life." He'd thought she meant the club. The violence. The uncertainty. She'd meant raising their son alone. "Oh God," Diesel whispered into the empty chapel. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." His son. His son was lying 3 floors up, fighting for breath, having taken bullets meant for. The chapel door creaked. Iron stood there, looking like he'd aged a decade in 3 hours. He held up his own letter, and their eyes met across the pews. "You too." Iron's voice was sandpaper and ash. Diesel nodded, couldn't speak. Iron sat down heavy beside him, 2 brothers suddenly drowning in the same impossible truth. Maya's letter says Malik is mine. Dates line up, 15 years ago, right before she left. Carmen's says the same. Same timeline. Diesel's hands shook. How is that possible? They sat in crushing silence, both letters spread between them like evidence at a crime scene. Iron read Carmen's. Diesel read Maya's. And slowly, horribly, the picture came into focus. They knew each other, Iron said slowly. Maya and Carmen. Remember? They were friends. Worked at the same diner for a while. Diesel's stomach dropped. You think they planned it? No. Iron's jaw clenched. But I think they made a choice. Two women pregnant by two bikers, scared of the life, scared of losing their kids to the violence. His voice cracked. Maybe they decided the truth was too complicated. Maybe Carmen told Maya to say the baby was mine. Or Maya told Carmen to say he was yours. Why would they do that? Protection. The word hung between them like a noose. If we both thought he was the other's kid, if there was confusion, maybe we'd... I don't know. Maybe they thought we'd leave them alone. Let them disappear clean. Diesel wanted to punch something, wanted to scream at ghosts who couldn't answer. So which one of us is he? Iron looked at his brother, not by blood, but by choice, by years of watching each other's backs through hell and high water. Does it matter? Of course it matters. He's ours, Iron interrupted, his voice firm despite the tears tracking down his face. Yours, mine. What's the difference? He jumped in front of my daughter. Your goddaughter. He bled on our asphalt. He carried both our letters in his pockets like they were scripture. Diesel's throat closed up. He was trying to figure out which one of us was his father. And instead of asking, instead of walking up and demanding answers like he had every right to, Iron's voice broke completely. He decided saving Skylar was answer enough. He decided we were worth dying for even if we never claimed him. The weight of that crushed them both. We need a DNA test, Diesel managed. We need him to wake up, Iron countered. Everything else is just details. They sat there until dawn crept through the stained glass. Two fathers who just discovered the same son, bound now not just by club loyalty but by a boy who'd somehow belonged to both of them all along. Upstairs, Malik's heart monitor beeped steady, unaware that his existence had just rewritten two men's entire histories. Two fathers. One son. A truth that fractures everything. Malik carried both their letters, searching for a father in a world that gave him two, and neither knew he existed until he was dying and Malik finally opens his eyes to a room full of leather vests and questions too heavy for a 15-year-old to answer. But the first question won't be who's your father? It'll be why did you jump? Drop a comment. Have you ever belonged to two worlds at once, never fully claimed by either? Sometimes family isn't about blood tests. It's about who shows up when your heart stops beating. The hospital's third-floor corridor erupted into chaos at 4:17 a.m. Theo Matthews kicked through the stairwell door with 3 armed men behind him, and the universe held its breath. But the saints of asphalt were already there. Iron had posted brothers at every entrance, every stairwell, every elevator. 12 bikers in leather vests standing guard like warrior angels over a boy who might be their blood. They'd been waiting, knowing men like Theo don't leave loose ends breathing. That's far enough. Diesel stepped out from Malik's ICU room, blocking the hallway with his body. Behind him, through the window, machines beeped their sacred rhythm, the sound of a boy still fighting to live. Theo stopped, his smile a knife in the fluorescent light. Little brother. Still playing hero for Vance's leftovers. That kid in there? Diesel's voice was granite. He's not leftovers. He's family. He's a mistake. Theo spat the word like poison. Maya's little accident that should have stayed buried with her. Iron emerged from the shadows beside Diesel, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The brothers hadn't stood face to face in 7 years, not since the night Iron put his gun to Theo's head and gave him a choice between exile and execution. You came for my son, Iron said, each word measured and deadly. That was your last mistake. Theo laughed, the sound unhinged. Your son? That homeless rat? You didn't even know he existed until yesterday. Don't dress up negligence as love. I know now. Iron's hand moved to his belt, where his piece rested. That's what matters. The hired guns behind Theo shifted nervously, suddenly realizing they'd walked into a trap. More bikers materialized from patient rooms, the chapel, the nurse's station, 15, 20, 25 leather-clad soldiers forming a wall of loyalty that couldn't be bought or broken. You can't kill all of us, Diesel said quietly. But we can damn sure end you. Theo's eyes flickered, calculation mixing with madness. I came to finish what those bullets started. That boy dies, and Vance's legacy dies with him. He already died once on our asphalt, a voice rasped from behind them. Everyone turned. Malik stood in the ICU doorway, one hand clutching his chest where tubes had been ripped free, the other gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him vertical. Blood seeped through his hospital gown, his face ghost white, but his eyes, those eyes burned with something ancient and unbreakable. "Malik, get back," Iron started. "No." The word came out strong despite the pain carved into every syllable. "I didn't take those bullets, so you could kill each other, over me." He took one shaking step forward, then another, leaving bloody footprints on sterile tile. Nurses rushed toward him, but Diesel waved them back. This moment was sacred, couldn't be interrupted. "You want to know who I am?" Malik looked at Theo, and something passed between them, recognition of the same darkness, the same abandonment, the same rage at a world that made them invisible. "I'm the kid nobody wanted. The secret that got buried. The mistake that learned to survive." He took another step, and Iron moved to catch him, but Malik shook his head. "But I'm also the son who saved his sister. The brother who chose love over hate." His legs buckled, and this time both Iron and Diesel caught him, held him upright between them, two fathers supporting the weight of one extraordinary boy. "I'm theirs," Malik whispered, looking at Theo with something close to pity. "And you can't kill what's already been reborn." Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. Chaos exploded. Nurses swarmed, alarms screamed, Iron and Diesel shouting for doctors as they laid Malik on a crash cart. In the confusion, Theo raised his gun. But Tank was faster. The massive biker tackled Theo from the side, and they went down hard, the gun skittering across linoleum. The hired guns reached for their weapons, but found themselves surrounded, outgunned, outsmarted by men who'd spent lifetimes reading violence before it bloomed. Iron's gun was pressed against Theo's forehead before his brother could blink. "You came for my son," Iron said, his voice arctic. "In a hospital. Where children sleep. Where my boy fights for every breath." Theo grinned blood through broken teeth. "Do it. Make me a martyr. Give me the easy way out." And that's when Iron understood. Death was mercy. Death was escape. He lowered the gun. "No," Iron said. "You're going to live. You're going to watch me raise the son you tried to kill. You're going to see him become everything you're not. And every day you breathe, you're going to remember, you had family, and you chose hate. That's your sentence. That's your hell." Police sirens wailed outside. Someone had finally called them. Tank and Snake zip-tied Theo and his crew, professional and cold, while Iron turned back to the ICU where doctors worked frantically over Malik's seizing body. Diesel grabbed his president's shoulder. "He's strong. He'll make it." "He better," Iron whispered, and for the first time in 7 years, he let himself cry. "He better, because I just got him back. I can't lose him now. Not now." Through the ICU window, they watched the doctors fight for Malik's life, a boy who'd already died once for love, being dragged back from the edge by the sheer force of two fathers' desperate prayers. The machines flatlined, then beeped, then held. Theo came to erase a bloodline. Instead, he cemented it. Malik stood on legs that shouldn't have held him, bled from wounds that should have killed him, and spoke truth that shattered his uncle's hate. Now the Matthews family faces its reckoning, not through violence, but through the sacred choice to keep fighting for each other. Have you ever seen someone choose love when hate would have been easier? Sometimes the bravest thing we do is refuse to become our trauma. The envelope sat on the cafeteria table like a loaded gun. Diesel stared at it for 20 minutes before his hand stopped shaking enough to open it. Iron sat across from him, silent, present. Whatever the paper said, they'd face it together. "You ready?" Iron asked quietly. Diesel laughed, bitter and broken. "To find out I abandoned my kid for 15 years? No, brother. I'm not ready." But he opened it anyway. His eyes scanned the scientific jargon, the percentages, the cold clinical language that reduced flesh and blood and sacrifice to numbers on a page. Then he found the line that mattered. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Diesel Murphy is the biological father of Malik Reed. The paper slipped from his fingers, floating down like a white flag of surrender. Diesel's breath came in ragged gasps, not quite crying, not quite laughing, something in between that lived in the space where joy and grief collide. "He's mine," Diesel whispered. "Oh God, Iron, he's mine." Iron reached across, gripped his brother's hand hard. "Yeah, he is." 15 years. The number felt obscene. 15 years I could've, should've, his voice cracked into pieces. He was living on the streets, man. Eating from dumpsters. Getting beaten. While I was right here, 5 miles away, never knowing. "You didn't know," Iron said firmly. "Carmen made that choice. Right or wrong, she kept him from you. That's not on you. Isn't it?" Diesel looked up, his eyes wet and wild. "I let her go. Didn't fight for her. Didn't ask questions when she disappeared. I just moved on. And my son paid the price for my cowardice." Iron wanted to argue, but the truth was complicated, messy, the kind of truth that doesn't fit in neat boxes marked guilty or innocent. "So what now?" Iron asked instead. Diesel wiped his face, and something shifted in him, something hardening into purpose, into steel-backed determination. "Now I become the father he deserved from the beginning. Now I make sure he knows that he's wanted. Claimed. Mine." He stood, the chair scraping loud in the quiet cafeteria. "Where is he?" "Still ICU. They moved him back after he stabilized." Iron stood too, following Diesel toward the elevators. "Doctors say he'll make it. Full recovery, maybe 6 months." 6 months I get to be there for," Diesel said, pressing the elevator button like it was a promise. "And every day after that. Every single day." They rode up in silence, two men who'd lived hard lives suddenly faced with the soft, terrifying work of actual fatherhood. When the elevator doors opened, they found the ICU transformed. Skylar asleep in a chair pulled close to Malik's window, her small hand pressed against the glass like she could heal him through sheer will. Tank stood guard, silent sentinel. Hammer had brought flowers, wildflowers, the kind that grow in ditches, the kind that survive anything. Malik was awake. His eyes tracked to them as they entered, and Diesel's heart stopped. Those eyes, Carmen's shape, but his intensity. His color. His soul looking back at him through 15 years of longing. "Hey," Malik whispered, his voice still rough from the breathing tube. "Hey, kid." Diesel approached slowly, like Malik was something wild that might bolt. "How you feeling?" "Like I got shot." A ghost of a smile. "But alive. That's new." Diesel pulled a chair close, sat down so they were eye level. "I got some news. About the test." He paused, suddenly terrified of rejection, of this boy who'd survived hell deciding his father came too late to matter. But Malik's eyes filled with something Diesel recognized. Hope, fragile and fierce. "The results came back," Diesel continued, his voice thick. "You're my son, Malik. Biologically, officially, every way that counts. You're mine." A single tear tracked down Malik's bruised cheek. "You sure?" 99.97% sure. Diesel's hand hovered over Malik's, asking permission. "But honestly? I was 100% sure the moment you jumped. Blood just confirmed what my heart already knew." Malik's fingers closed around his father's, holding tight like a drowning man gripping a lifeline. "I looked for you," he whispered. "For months. Watched the clubhouse. Tried to figure out which one. I just wanted to know where I came from." "You came from love," Diesel said, his own tears falling free now. "Your mama loved you. Loved you so much she made impossible choices trying to protect you. And I." His voice broke. "I didn't know. But I know now. And I'm not going anywhere. Ever. Promise." The word was so small, so childlike. The 15-year-old street warrior suddenly just a boy who needed his dad. "I promise." Diesel leaned forward, pressed his forehead to their joined hands. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. Sorry for every birthday, every nightmare, every moment you needed me and I was too ignorant to show up. But I'm here now. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for lost time." Iron watched from the doorway, his own heart breaking and rebuilding. Malik wasn't his biological son, but he'd saved Skylar, had brought the club together in ways blood alone never could. Some families are born. Others are forged in fire and choice. Diesel. Malik's voice pulled him back. Yes, son. The word son landed between them like a benediction. Can you stay? Just for a while. Diesel settled deeper into the chair, never releasing his boy's hand. Kid, you couldn't make me leave if you tried. Outside, dawn broke over Atlanta, golden and new, full of second chances and the kind of grace that only comes after you've bled for it. A father had found his son. A son had found his home. And somewhere, Carmen Reed was smiling. DNA confirmed what the heart already knew. After 15 years of absence, Diesel Murphy finally became the father Malik deserved, not through genetics, but through the choice to stay, to claim, to love what the world called disposable. Have you ever gotten a second chance you didn't deserve but needed desperately? Sometimes grace looks like a paternity test and a father who refuses to leave. 3 months later, the clubhouse looked different in morning light. Malik sat on the wooden bench outside, his chest still tender where scars crisscrossed like roadmaps of grace. Diesel emerged with 2 mugs of coffee, one black, one with enough sugar to raise the dead, and handed the sweet one to his son. You sure about this? Diesel asked, nodding toward the leather vest folded beside Malik on the bench. Not a full patch, he was too young for that, but a prospect cut with property of Saints of Asphalt stitched across the back. And underneath, in smaller letters, Legacy. Malik ran his fingers over the leather, feeling the weight of belonging. I jumped in front of bullets for this family before I even knew they were mine. Yeah, Dad. I'm sure. Dad. The word still hit Diesel like lightning every time. Sudden, electric, life-altering. Then let's make it official. Diesel helped Malik into the vest, adjusting it carefully around healing wounds. The fit wasn't perfect. Malik had gained 15 pounds in 3 months of actual meals, but he was still growing into himself, into this new skin. The clubhouse doors burst open, and Skylar came running, 6 years old and fearless, her blonde pigtails bouncing. She'd taken to calling Malik her superhero brother, told everyone at kindergarten how he'd flown through the air to save her. Malik, you look so cool. She hugged him carefully, aware of his injuries the way children intuitively understand fragility. Thanks, Sky. He ruffled her hair, and the gesture was so natural, so brotherly, that Iron, watching from the doorway, had to look away before the emotion overwhelmed him. The rest of the club filed out. Tank, Hammer, Snake, a dozen brothers who become uncles overnight. They'd spent 3 months teaching Malik what family meant, how to change oil, how to throw a punch properly, how to accept love when you've only known abandonment. Brothers, Iron called out, his voice carrying authority and warmth. We gather today not to patch in a member. Malik's got years before he earns that. But to acknowledge what he already is, blood. Family. One of ours. The bikers formed a circle, leather and tattoos and hard-lived years surrounding one skinny 15-year-old who'd somehow become their North Star. Malik Reed Murphy, Iron continued, using the name Diesel had legally given him last week. Paperwork filed, adoption finalized, no more question of belonging. You proved your heart on that asphalt. Took bullets meant for my daughter. Showed us what sacrifice looks like when it's pure. Malik's throat tightened, but he stood tall. You could have walked away, Tank added, his gravelly voice unexpectedly gentle. Could have let the world keep making you invisible. But you chose to be seen. Chose to matter. That's what saints do, Hammer said. We show up. We protect. We bleed for each other. Diesel stepped forward, pulling something from his pocket, a chain with 2 pendants. One was Carmen's wedding ring, the one she'd worn when they'd had that quick courthouse ceremony before she disappeared. The other was a silver medallion engraved with the club's emblem. Your mama wanted you to have something good, Diesel said, fastening the chain around Malik's neck. Something that proved you came from love. This ring, she wore it every day. And this medallion? It was my father's. Now it's yours. Past and future, all wrapped up in one legacy. Malik touched the pendants, feeling the weight of generations, of choices, of grace. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. How to be someone's son. Someone's brother. I've been alone so long. Then we learn together, Diesel interrupted. I don't know how to be a dad to a teenager, but I know how to show up. How to stay. How to love you through the hard parts. Iron placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. And you're not alone. You got a whole club of uncles ready to teach you everything from motorcycle maintenance to how to spot a liar from 50 feet. We're loud, we're messy, we make questionable decisions. But we're loyal, Snake finished. To the bone. To the grave. To whatever comes next. The brothers raised their fists, not in violence, but in unity. And Malik raised his too, feeling something shift inside his chest where bullets had once torn through. Not pain this time. Something else. Wholeness. Welcome home, kid, Tank said, and the circle closed in, a mass of leather and acceptance, rough hands gentle on Malik's shoulders, voices rough with emotion they'd never admit to outside these walls. Skylar squeezed in through the legs, grabbing Malik's hand. Does this mean you're staying forever? Malik looked at Diesel, at Iron, at the brothers who'd become his world. He thought about Carmen watching from wherever souls go when they finally rest. He thought about those nights sleeping in alleys, wondering if anyone would notice if he disappeared. Yes, Sky, he said, his voice strong and sure. Forever. That afternoon, they fired up the grills. Music poured from speakers, old blues and newer rock. The soundtrack of lives lived hard and loved harder. Malik sat between Diesel and Iron, watching the club's families arrive. Wives, girlfriends, kids who ran wild and free, knowing they were protected. This was family. Messy and complicated and built on second chances. You good? Diesel asked quietly, reading the overwhelm in his son's eyes. Yeah. Malik smiled, a real smile, the kind he'd forgotten how to make. Just thinking about how different things could have been. If I'd walked away that day. If I hadn't jumped. But you did jump, Diesel reminded him. And that choice, that one moment of courage, it saved more than Skylar. It saved you. Saved me. Saved all of us from being the men we were becoming. Iron raised his beer. To Malik. The kid who taught us what it means to be family. To Malik. The brothers echoed, glasses raised high. And Malik, for the first time in 15 years, felt seen. Claimed. Loved. Not because he'd earned it, but because grace doesn't wait for permission. Later, as the sun set over the clubhouse and fireflies danced in the Georgia heat, Diesel found Malik sitting alone by the bikes, running his hand over a Harley's chrome. You can learn to ride, Diesel offered. When you're healed. If you want. I want. Malik looked up at his father, and the word felt right now, felt true. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Mom knew? That you'd find me eventually? That this would all work out? Diesel sat beside him, looking up at stars Carmen used to sing beneath. I think your mama knew exactly what she was doing. She gave you her strength, her survival instinct, her fierce heart. Then she trusted that when the time was right, you'd find your way home. And I did. Yes, son. You did. They sat in comfortable silence, father and son, watching the club family laugh and love and live loudly, the way the broken always do when they finally find their people. Malik touched the scars on his chest, badges of honor now, not shame. He died on that asphalt. Been reborn in a hospital room. And found redemption in a father's refusal to give up on him. This was his beginning. This was his family. This was home. From invisible to invaluable. From abandoned to claimed. Malik Reed Murphy learned that family isn't about perfection. It's about people who show up when your heart stops beating and refuse to let you stay dead. The Saints of Asphalt gained more than a prospect. They gained their conscience, their reminder that love is always worth the leap. This is where Malik's journey transforms from survival to legacy. If this story grabbed your soul, drop a comment. Tell me about the moment someone saw you when you felt invisible. Share the time you jumped without thinking and it changed everything. Because stories like Malik's, they're happening right now in clubhouses and street corners and hospital rooms across America. Kids waiting to be claimed, fathers learning it's never too late, families being forged in fire and choice. Hit that follow button because there are more stories where this came from. Stories of redemption written in asphalt and grace, of second chances that look like paternity tests and leather vests, of love that refuses to quit even when hate comes knocking. You matter. Your story matters. And somewhere, someone's waiting to jump. Don't make them wait alone. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.